Did the Saints draft really deserve an A plus? Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in New Orleans. Football. Great question. So we've heard how good the Saints draft was. I've said the draft was great. Everyone has said it's great. But did you know the Saints were one of 4 teams in the NFL to get A plus grade from PFF? So it's not just me. It's not just Saints fans. Like, everyone around is lauding the Saints draft. Now the question is it an A plus draft? I think that's a little strong, to be honest. I think A plus is a little heavy. It's a little strong. I gave it an A. I could hear the conversation for a B plus. I think A plus is strong because the picks that I like Spencer Rattler, we're not going to really see those picks come to fruition for a couple of years. So, and for what the hell is going on with the hair? The bang situation. That is some curl. Look at that. Kelly Slater could get a 10 if he dropped in on that wave. Good Lord. Had to make a little change there. It was distracting me. Let's get on with the video.
The draft is over with. Now it's time to evaluate. Did the Saints really deserve an A plus rating for the draft? The Saints draft was almost universally praised by, analysts nationally and locally. But even Pro Football Focus gave the Saints an A plus. But did we think it was good, or is it a little too soon to say that?
Exactly what I just said. I think it was good. I think it was really good. And by the way, guys, so there are analytics. There are analytics that you can look at with draft. I'm not just shooting from the hip. A lot of people in some of the draft videos I had asked me, how are you? Is this by tape or is this by, how are you actually grading this? And there are analytics so you can check out. There's a million different ones. Obviously, I'll show you one real quick from Warren Sharp. So here's Warren Sharp. So he tweeted this out. Again, this isn't gospel. This one analytic isn't the end all be all, but this shows you right here. So it's DCOE, which is draft capital over expectation. And you can see who had picks that were considered value. The more to the left of the grid is that. The reaches are to the right. So you can see the Falcons were the worst if you factor in the actual value they got per pick. The Saints were 6. There's also analytics you can look at for value, expected value per pick. So how much that pick is expected to play, how much that pick is expected to impact immediately. So things like that are how you kind of weight actual draft success.
It was an A plus draft.
Well, it's always too soon to say it's anything. We don't really know what it is. And typically when you end up getting these grades, it's because your draft has followed the consensus. And I think they made a couple picks above where everybody thought people were going to be taken. Spencer Rattler ends up going probably 2 rounds later than everybody thought he was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, Rattler's a great example of the value per pick. So we don't know how good Rattler actually will be. Right now, we know for sure Rattler's not going to play this upcoming season, barring some crazy injury or something. He's probably not going to play the season after. But if you look at the pick itself, so Rattler was the 7th quarterback off the board, but 6 went in the top 12 picks. Rattler had a 3rd round grade. So the Rattler pick, albeit he won't play, the Rattler pick itself is a tremendous amount of value. A tremendous amount of value when you're getting a guy who was graded, let's just say a consensus 3rd round pick, you're getting him in the 5th round. That is strong. Same with Kool-Aid. So Kool-Aid, he will play, he will be impactful, but his grade, consensus grade, was a top 25 pick. So the fact that you could get him at 41 is in itself a ton of value. So in a way, you can grade the draft separate of how they actually do on the field. Now, that's a discussion for later on. A discussion for much later on is how good was this draft in retrospect. But we're trying to grade it basically just on draft day or draft weekend. We're trying to grade it. How did you do with the picks that you had and the spots that you had? How much value did you seemingly extract? Is kind of how I would phrase the grade that PFF and people are giving the Saints. And that's why they're giving them an A plus.
I think the Boyd pick kind of was well behind where he was projected to go. So that was another one that ends up being a win. Kool-Aid was considered a first rounder by a lot of people. They got him in the 2nd round. And then I think they got Fuaga right where he was considered. Bub, I think they got him kind of right around that range where he was supposed to go. So they kind of beat the curve a little bit on a couple picks, and that's how you end up getting that grade. But I think looking at it, I like the idea of a lot of their picks. I like the theory of it. I like the fact that it was forward thinking. So
love it. Exactly what I was saying in a couple of the videos. Well said by Nichols. We're on the same wavelength here. I'll give you a good example of why I think the Saints won this draft. Kool-Aid versus Malachi Corley. All right. So Malachi Corley was someone who he was in one of our videos. Like, we talked about Malachi Corley before the draft because everyone, all the sheep, were group thinking. And remember, guys, if everyone's thinking the same, no one's thinking. Okay. Everyone was saying Malachi Corley at 45. And I was sitting here going, who? Malachi Corley, the Western Kentucky wide receiver? You want to take him at 45? Like, everyone's saying it, but is that really the pick? So we end up taking Kool-Aid, all right? Kool-Aid flips the value. Kool-Aid was supposed to be top 32, let's just say, value. You get him at 41, so that's plus value there. Then you do not get Malachi Corley, who drops to mid-60s. So obviously him at 45 would have been a reach. That would have been negative value. Then you look at Bub Means. So we do get a wide receiver. We get Bub later on in the 5th round. My question to you is the difference between Bub Means and Malachi Corley, is their talent and ability and what they're going to do and their impact and all that stuff, is that difference worth 100 picks? The answer is probably no. So that's the pick that I think really swung this draft, was the Saints saying, you know what, we're not going to stick with the consensus. We're not going to do that. We're going to get the player that we think shouldn't be here. We're going to get the value. Kool-Aid was the value. Like Fuaga, like on this value thing that I'm talking about, he's not swinging the value that big. Like Fuaga went where he probably was supposed to go. So he didn't swing it one way or the other. Spencer Rattler and Kool-Aid 100% swung the value part of this. I think that's why the Saints are so high on those metrics. The Ford pick, I've said that I thought that was a bit of a reach because I saw grades on him that were in the 7th round and undrafted free agent. We took him in the 5th. And then Dennis Allen comes out and says he's going to play special teams and maybe fight for a linebacker position. And so remember those kind of things when you're looking at like Ford at Texas, when you're looking at how he played, and you're like, well, maybe he'll be a starting linebacker this year. Maybe he'll do this. That he's not even like, that's not why he's taken. So make sure you are listening to player interviews and coach interviews and to try and figure out like where they want to put these guys. And I think taking a special teams player with an undrafted free agent, a 7th round grade in the 5th round, I think that was a miss. But the rest of the picks I thought were fine.
I would grade it pretty highly myself. I don't think an A+, but I mean, I think somewhere probably in that B range.
I think you nailed it, first of all, why everyone liked it, because all the books and the websites and everything had these guys rated as going higher, and they got good value on them. And that's how everyone judges these drafts. Like, my gut reaction was I liked it, but like I was surprised that this was like an A+ draft. I mean, Bub Means and Jalen Ford could be really good players. I don't see where they're going to play big roles on this team right away. So we're really talking about the top 3 picks, I think. Obviously, Fuaga is exactly what they needed. And I think Kool-Aid McKinstry and Spencer Rattler are the 2 picks that made everyone love this draft.
100%. Those are the 2 picks that swung the value.
2 reasons. One, I think a lot of people had him going in round 1. They get him at 41. But he also kind of proved they weren't reaching. That felt like a best available player pick. Like when we listed the Saints' immediate needs, now we don't know what's going to happen with Marshawn Lattimore, but we were saying offensive line and receiver and defensive end and safety. And they were like, no, we're going to take the corner who should have gone in round 1. And it just looked like smart business. They were thinking about.
Yep, exactly. I mean, that's an echo. I mean, I just said all that. 100%, Mike. Very rarely do I and me and Mike see. He's kind of more of an old school, I think, thinker with some of the roster building and draft stuff, or at least that's how it's been leading up to the draft. But man, he just said exactly what I was saying, where we didn't reach on Malachi Corley. We didn't reach on some random wide receiver or some random position that we needed. We said, you know what? We're not doing that. We're taking a good player. This guy should not be here. This is a super talented player. I loved it when it happened. I love the pick now, obviously, and I'm glad everyone else is on the same page.
About 2006, as much as they were thinking about 2004. And then they did that with Spencer Rattler, too. it wasn't just that a lot of people had him going in round 3 and they got him in round 5. It just showed, hey, the Saints are pretty forward thinking, and we haven't seen a forward thinking Saints team in a long time.
Yes. Yeah, even when Burt Breer said that they were looking for a corner like the day before the draft, I was kind of surprised by it, and I didn't fully buy into it. So, yeah, definitely. I think they went up and got him because he fell so far. I heard first round grades on him. I heard a third round grade on Rattler from other teams. So I think they ended up getting him where like later than he probably should have went. But yeah, they didn't force anything. And look, the one thing that I would say, and I think if you're one of the people that are counting down the days for change, I think this draft is kind of a vote of patience. Like, it kind of feels
the change. That's a different video for a different day. But the people who are waiting, like counting down the days for change, I really don't understand it. I really don't. I mean, I understand people were frustrated with the performance of last season, but this whole like get Mickey Loomis out of there, get Gail Benson out of there, like that whole arc, I don't really understand. And yeah, I think this draft is one where you look at it and say, okay, damn, Mickey, you did it. We're going to give you a couple more years here. Like, and there's so many worse GMs. There's so many worse owners. Not that ownership really matters at the end of the day, but there's so many worse GMs than Mickey Loomis. And I'm not saying Mickey Loomis is first ballot Hall of Fame GM here, but he's made good moves. He's kept the Saints relevant for damn near 2 decades. Like, I've waxed poetic about this a million times. Since 2000, the Saints are one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. We have won the games that put us in that top 10. We are so much more successful since 2000 than the Dallas Cowboys. It's not even close. You look at the Cowboys, they haven't made a conference championship game. They haven't made a Super Bowl since like 98. Since 2000, we'll just call it even numbers. And the Saints are way more successful. So I think Mickey in his tenure has kept the ship steady. Love this draft. We've seen good drafts before, and we've seen that, like, we've seen Mickey kind of lose some of the credit. I'm not saying that he deserves all the credit, but we hear like, oh, that was Sean Payton making those picks, or oh, he got lucky hiring Sean Payton. Oh, he got even luckier hiring Drew Brees. Oh, Kamara and Michael Thomas and Lattimore, Mark Ingram. No, that was Sean Payton. So you see a draft like this, it's like, man, maybe Mickey does have some magic left.
Feels like nobody's doing anything to try to be like to maximize today. It feels more about like maximizing the long-term health of the franchise.
Everything they've done this offseason makes it feel like
they are not desperate.
They're long-term thinking. Now, we've still talked a lot on here, like what could Dennis Allen and Derek Carr both survive? But the organization as a whole has agreed, let's reset. And I like it. And my favorite, which was my favorite part of this whole draft, was they did trade up to get McKinstry, but they just traded a 5th and a 6th.
Yeah, whatever. We had extra picks anyways. And that's another thing too with the whole, like, they aren't desperate. The Saints have proven, even when we don't win Super Bowls, even when we don't win the division, even when we go on lulls, we haven't lost, or we haven't won less than, since the schedule's changed, I can't say we haven't lost. We haven't won less than 7 games since, I believe, someone double check me, but I believe the season before Sean Payton got here was the last time we won less than 7 games. So even at our worst, even when the roster is the weakest, even when, whatever's happening, we're not really much worse than average. We're not really much worse than 500. So this is a team that has stayed afloat. This is a team that has showed you they can go for a Super Bowl at times. They can go for a division championship or a conference championship, or they can go quote unquote all in at times, but still keep the long-term vision there. And the drafts like this are the 100% example. The roster is not that much different from last year. I would assume the goals of last year are the goals of this year. Win the division, win those 9-10 games somewhere in there. But we're also getting better in the future. We're also getting better for 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. So there isn't that insane drop-off. The fact that we lost Sean Payton and Drew Brees within 2 years of each other. We lost the greatest coach in our franchise history and the greatest quarterback in our franchise history. Both of those happened, and we didn't have a hard reset. That is unbelievable. Look at the Patriots. And I know it was more than Brady. But look at the Patriots. They lose Tom Brady. They keep Bill Belichick, and they're a complete disaster. Like, they're probably, if I had to guess, again, someone double check me. If I had to guess, they're probably close to 15 games under 500 since Brady left, somewhere in there. And that was with a pretty decent season for Mac Jones his rookie year. So it is way harder than it looks to keep things afloat when you lose like a top quarterback and a top coach like that. So, kudos to the Saints for keeping things kind of chill. Last year, people, I mean, if you go on the Saints Reddit subreddit, last year people were ready to, jump off the roof of buildings, and we won 9 games. So was last year a disappointment? Sure. But if that's a disappointment, if 9 wins is a disappointment, okay. And I think the draft did a little bit of both. I think the draft said, we're going to get some more talented players on here, i.e. Fuaga and Kool-Aid. And it also said, but we're preparing for the future too, with picks like Rattler and Bub Means and Christian Boyd.
In a draft where they had a ton of picks on day 3, they've got all of their picks for next year except for a day 3 pick that's still involved in one of their former trades, but they got their first, second, third, fourth next year. They waited at 14. They even waited on Rattler. I mean, I could not believe they waited through rounds 3 and 4. So just a lot of things feel like the Saints just have an awareness of who they are. Although I will say, if we go back to the pre-draft show, I predicted them drafting a corner in round 2. The only reason I didn't pick Kool-Aid is because I thought it was going to go too high.
Perfect.
I almost
good.
Look, my only thing against them making that trade, though, is I think 2 of my favorite picks were in the 5th round of this.
Yeah, so what if they had
Rattler and
another
Boyd?
5th
Yeah,
rounder?
what if they hit on another guy there? And we don't know if they hit on anyone, but I don't think that there's been a more exciting 5th round pick in NFL history than Spencer Rattler. Like, that is just an unbelievable 5th round pick. This guy that people were talking about being at the top of the draft, a few years ago. Now he's available in the 5th. I mean, I love it. I love the Boyd pick. I think they did a good job in those rounds.
Yeah,
We're going to see, it's always
Of
comes
all the
out.
picks, Boyd probably filled a need more than any other pick since Fuaga in round 1. But quickly on Rattler.
But doesn't this just show you, and Mike just said it right there, like, doesn't this just show you that when I was screaming that pick for need, that's old, like that's old mentality, get that out of here, get that out of my face, doesn't this just show you exactly why? Doesn't this show you that if you just kind of sit there and you get creative and you're willing to move up if you have to, or stay put if you have to, but you're open to different positions and you let the draft kind of, you play the draft board instead of letting the draft board play you. If you do that, you get A+ grades. You get excitement. You get the fans pumped up. You get media pumped up. Mina Kimes from ESPN said the Saints were one of her 3 favorite drafts. Like people who don't even talk about the Saints, people who don't cover the Saints, they're looking at this and they're like, damn, A+ draft. Damn, top 3 favorite draft. Why? Because we didn't do what we always do. We didn't sit back and say, let's draft for position of need. Screaming from the rooftops. I'm glad Mickey subscribes to this channel. I'm glad they watched this channel at lunch during the front office. Because they finally said, all right, let's just get some talent on the roster. Let's shake things up. Let's get exciting. Let's not just take a random quarterback from Indiana State who kind of sort of, if you squint real hard, kind of sort of looks like Drew Brees. Let's take an exciting quarterback prospect. Let's take a guy who 2 years ago was the favorite to win the Heisman. I just love the philosophy.
I want to hear your thoughts on him because you just did the film study on him, and we don't want to give that all away. You got to check out New Orleans Football. That's what you subscribe for. That's what
absolutely.
Nick does best and has always done best. But I think the discussion around Rattler is so different because he's a 5th rounder. I feel like if they traded, next year's 2nd to get into round 3 and traded Rattler and drafted Rattler, or if they just had a 3rd and drafted Rattler, I think it'd be met with so much more skepticism.
100%.
Getting him in round 5 makes everyone. It's the same player with the same upside, with the same. Hey, maybe 2 years from now he could be their next starter after Derek Carr. But for some reason, getting him in 5th makes them feel like geniuses, and getting him in round 3, I think some people would think it was reckless. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not crazy.
Crazy how much that changes the tone of the conversation, because I've seen almost universal praise for that.
It makes so much sense. I mean, again, like guys, draft capital, player investment, all that stuff really matters. Really, really matters. The reason that it's not met with any kind of negativity is because when you take a player in the 5th round like that, you remove all pressure. So you remove the clock for Rattler to have to play. There is no clock for Rattler. You know who there's a clock for? Michael Penix, Why? Because Michael Penix got taken 8th overall, right? So now there's like all this. Just look at those 2 drafts. Just look at those 2 picks right there. The Michael Penix pick has just been crucified. People, I mean, Mel Gibson style, they've just been going after that pick. Why? Because it's an 8th overall pick, so it comes with all this timeline stuff, the contracts, wasting a pick that high. It comes with all of that. It puts pressure on Kirk Cousins. Cousins isn't happy about it. Rattler going in the 5th, there's no timeline. There's no pressure on Carr or Rattler. You get a guy with a huge upside, but it's all upside when you take a pick like that. So that's why the Rattler pick is so exciting. And that's why I kind of had to check myself, because I've never been so excited about a 5th round quarterback prospect. Like, look at how people are reacting to, or even me. Like, look at how I am reacting to the Rattler pick. And he was taken a full round after Jake Haener. Like, a full round after. But it's because Rattler not only is an incredible value and incredible timeline lining up and all that with him being a 5th round pick, but when you look at his story, it is so rare for us or for any team to fall into a guy who had the pedigree and the talent and all that Rattler does. That is incredibly rare. It's similar. It would be, I guess it's the exact same thing. It would be like if Shedeur Sanders was horrible this year and lost the starting job and had to transfer. And then in 2 years, he gets drafted in the 5th round. It's like, man, at one point he was sweet. At one point he was the favorite to win the Heisman. At one point he was the favorite to be the 1st overall pick. Because right now, as of today, Shedeur Sanders, by the way, is the favorite to be the 1st overall pick in next year's draft. And because of some hard times or because of whatever happens at whatever random university, this player falls, and you get this talent, this undeveloped, unknown, untapped talent. You get a free roll on it. You get a free roll on a lottery is what it is. It's a free roll on hitting the lottery, and that's why the Rattler pick is so exciting.
I would like to pick in any round, really. I mean, not first rounder or whatever, but like a 3rd round pick. I still would have liked to pick. I like the idea. I've been saying it for damn near a decade now. I like the idea of taking a quarterback almost every single year. I think especially in that range, there's just so much opportunity to catch lightning in the bottle for like a very, very low cost. And
100%.
Catching lightning in a bottle is damn near impossible. You don't get struck by lightning really ever. So except for the guy in Benjamin Button that got struck like 7 times in that movie. But
my uncle got struck by lightning, shook it off, didn't even go to the hospital, shook it off, running through a thunderstorm barefoot, was in a puddle or something, boom, got hit. That was it. Nothing. That's what life's all about.
I mean, it just doesn't happen. But
wasn't that The Great Outdoors with John Candy?
But yeah, I think it's a good value pick. But look, my conclusion on that story, I think that there's just so much negativity around him because he went from a highly acclaimed player to somebody that wasn't highly acclaimed. So instead of looking at him and saying like he does these things well, there's a predisposition, I think, to be like, well, he can't do this, he can't do that, he can't do this. Whereas if you're drafting someone in the 2nd, 3rd round, you're just kind of looking at him, you're like, oh, he's like good at these things, and if he develops, he could become this. And I think that's hurt him a lot. And I think it even hurt him in the slide. Like, I think it was more than QB1. I think he's just somebody that you've become so predisposed to see every single flaw because he was once considered like a potential number 1 pick in the draft. And then now he's a guy that's just fallen. It's like, well, what's wrong with him? Oh, I don't want to touch him.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I'm talking about with like his potential. If you put Spencer Rattler in Oregon instead of Bo Nix and you flip them, if you flip Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler last season, Bo Nix at South Carolina is not going 12th overall. Bo Nix is going 12th overall because of the success he had at Oregon and all that. I have a sneaky feeling, I'm going to say it because I can't prove it. I have a sneaky feeling if Spencer Rattler was at Oregon last year, Spencer Rattler might be a 1st round pick. So college is funny because like Nick said, you can go through things, whether it's like a bad season or a bad coach or a bad situation or you transfer or an injury perhaps. And these weird narratives can happen. And the weird narrative can be the difference in something like a 1st round pick and a 5th round pick, right? But what you really should do is strip all that away. You should really strip all of what happened away, the record, the team, the playoff success, the bowl games, like strip all that away and just look at the player. And you cannot tell me that Spencer Rattler and Bo Nix or Spencer Rattler and J.J. McCarthy, you can't tell me that those two players are 5 rounds apart talent-wise. No way. No way at all. You don't think Spencer Rattler could have handed the ball off 36 straight times against Penn State if he played at Michigan? I don't know, right? And again, Spencer Rattler got beat out by Caleb Williams. So it's not like he was playing at Delaware and got beat out by some random person. Spencer Rattler's a unique character. He's got a lot of narrative behind him. People, poke and prod and all that stuff at his personality and what have you. But if you look at just the football player, which I think we should, then you have to admit, like, he has a ton of just actual talent, like a ton of raw talent. Can it be developed? Can it all be put together? That will, we'll have to wait and see. But it just goes to show you how, like, the market and how a player is viewed or whatever they go through and stuff like that, how it shows you how much it can really affect a player. And I think that's kind of unfair.
So I think that kind of hurts him a little bit. It's just kind of the perception is already kind of set. So, but man, when you watch him, the first line in the story is Spencer Rattler is going to look different than all the other quarterbacks when they line up this summer because, like,
100%.
He throws, like, I think he has one of the best arms I've ever looked at. And there's so much more to playing quarterback than arm. Jameis has a great arm. Like, there's so much more to playing quarterback than just being able to throw the ball. But his arm is unbelievable. And I think when we're looking at routes on air, when you aren't really looking at quarterback stuff, like, he's going to be throwing the ball and he's going to look different than Derek Carr. And it's going to be like, wow, this guy can really spin it. And I think he's exciting. I think there's a ton of stuff he has to do better. We break it all down, all the stuff he needs to do better. But I think there's a ton of stuff he does well too. And, I think it's going to take some time, but he has a chance. Like,
good news. He's got 2 to 3 years. It's going to take time. Perfect. Exactly. He's got time. That's what you get. You get a number 6 value meal. And instead of a large fry when you draft a quarterback in the round 5, you get time. That's the combo. Because you don't have to force him. You don't have to force him to compete with Derek Carr. You don't have to force him to do anything. Like Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, Drake May, all these guys come with a timeline. They all come with the pressure of, you better play now. Like we saw with Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett wasn't ready to start in the NFL, and he was forced to start because, he's a first-round pick and our team sucks. So play him. Like, that has to happen. We see guys, we just saw it with Desmond Ridder. Like, hey, our team is struggling. You're our 3rd-round pick. You're a young quarterback. Are you ready to play? No, but we have to play you. Spencer Rattler, he can chill. The 5th-round pick offers him so much time that I wouldn't be surprised if they played Nathan Peterman or Kellen Mond or whoever makes the roster, if they played them if they had to, and let Rattler and let him develop. And Nick's right. And Nick, I can't even imagine how much tape and practices and all of that Nick has watched at running New Orleans football. And he's 100% right. The fact that he's going to look different, the fact that he's going to be standing there and, like, think about it. Think about when Nick and Mike were watching Ian Book and watching Trevor Siemian and watching Jake Haener and watching all the same guy, like the efficient, smart, average arm, but he's really accurate, like that kind of player. Imagine watching that kind of player and now seeing Spencer Rattler, who at one point, I keep saying this, but it's true. At one point, college coaches said, yeah, this is the number 1 prospect in the nation. That's how talented he is. So he is going to stand out and he is going to look different. And he's only 23 years old. So, just an absolute perfect situation for the Saints.
I think he has a real chance of becoming an NFL starter one day if everything comes together.
The chat is saying 100%. That the Saints, they're giving the grade between B+ and A+. So I think that's about right. Kind of consistent with what y'all saying. But, you talk about Rattler. I think it's safe to say he's your favorite day 3 pick.
I don't. Yes. The upside there is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's my favorite day. Yeah, I would rank the picks. I think I'm so happy with Fuaga. I'm so happy with Kool-Aid. And then, Rattler has to be, I would say, your favorite day 3 pick and probably my 3rd favorite pick of this draft.
They got a quarterback where, again, I think the odds of him becoming a starter, like anyone taken in that range, the odds are long. It just is. Like, if if you're there, you're getting taken a lot earlier if the league agrees with it, regardless of your flaws. So there's enough flaw there for it to be less likely than likely. But yeah, I like it. I mean, I see a path where it's possible. I
100%.
think I would be shocked if he's doesn't beat out Haener for the backup spot this year. I mean, I think he's that good, and they're both starting from an even spot now. It's not like Haener has this like year in the system and he's going to come in with this like built-in knowledge, and now Rattler's playing catch-up. They're starting from the same place. You know, Haener has the edge of being an NFL quarterback for a year, knowing how stuff works, knowing where the meeting.
If it was me, if I was in the front office, I would go into the season with, if you could, I'd go into the season with Carr and Peterman or Mond or whoever. Like I said, whichever veteran you want to hold. Carr, that veteran, and then Rattler's my 3. Haener's on the practice squad is how I would do it. Because Rattler is obviously the backup. But if something happens to Carr early, you don't want Rattler going in. Because then that all of a sudden messes up this whole thing we're talking about, where there's no timeline, there's no pressure. If he goes in immediately, all of a sudden that all goes out the window. So I'd rather let Peterman or Mond, deal with that while I still develop my guy. And also, I'm going to say this is controversial yet brave. I would rather have Spencer Rattler than Bo Nix and probably J.J. McCarthy. And that's not even factoring in where they were taken. Just as a prospect, if I had to develop somebody, I would probably rather Rattler than both of them. And if you toss in the pick, if you toss in that, and I've got to take Bo Nix in the first and J.J. McCarthy in the first and all this, then I really would rather have Rattler.
Meeting room is knowing how to study, all that stuff. So there's a little bit of an edge, but I think Spencer's a more talented player.
It's a brand new offense for both of them.
Yeah. They're both hitting it and trying to run from the same starting point, and I think Rattler's going to be able to.
But you think they're the two? You think Carr and the young guys, or you think you pick a young guy and you pick a veteran?
No, I think both of them guys are gone, man. I think they're both gone.
The rest of this round, like I said, Christian Boyd, he almost has the cleanest path to playing time, and I don't think it'll be a lot of playing time. But I mean, you said it how many times sitting in that chair that. I think you might have said 5th round. They got him in the 6th round because they got an A+ draft. But
6th round,
but they got no. I'm saying you kept saying in the 5th round draft your nose tackle, and there you go. Yep. You got your next Tyler Davison. You got your next Malcolm Roach. They got him in the 6th round, so the value was really good. But that you can get that guy, and this guy is just a massive behemoth. Has the experience. I mean, it feels like he should be part of the rotation as a run stuffer, and that fills the biggest need. Bub Means, obviously, physical pass catcher. I don't know that he can get snaps ahead of A.T. Perry and Cedric Wilson right away. That'll be interesting to see. But the most interesting guy that they drafted to me on day 3, besides them, is Jalen Ford from Texas. Because he is like, if you just read all their bios, you're like, oh, so that guy went 5th in the draft. Like he was the starting Mike linebacker, team captain, green dot guy for the team in the college football playoff that turned their program around. Obviously first team all conference and getting all American love.
What's going on here,
tackles over the last 2 years, forced 10 turnovers over the last 2 years. Just such a polished guy. Now there's just no path. Like, they've got Demario Davis, they've got Pete Werner and Willie Gay fighting for a job. So he could be a future plan to replace one of those guys. But in the meantime,
I got lost. Mike put me in a damn trance there. I had a thought, and then Mike sent me on into a different dimension, and then I had to find my thought again. So also remember this: Chase Young is kind of a draft pick. Now that's going to sound crazy, okay? I'm pretty sure Chase Young's 24 years old, right? Someone double check me on that. So Chase Young is the same age as Michael Penix. Chase Young, granted, coming off of an injury, all that stuff, but I think the Saints look at him like an added draft pick where, look, we've got this 24-year-old guy, we've got this young guy who can play, and if he's good, if he's healthy and all that, then we'll sign him to an extension. He's on a 1-year prove-it deal, incentive-based deal. So you could kind of add that in as an added bonus to this draft. Now, obviously, none of that was added in when people are giving this an A+, but Chase Young is young enough, and he will be starting. So that's even part of this long-term plan. I really hope I'm right about Chase Young being 24. Let me go ahead and make sure. Let me make sure Chase Young is 24 years old. I'm pretty sure he is. And if Chase Young is 24, let's see, 25. He just turned 25 a week and a half ago. Okay, but Penix, yeah, okay. So he's right there. My point is he's right there in age. Damn, if I would have filmed this video 9 days ago, he would have been 24.
Playing special teams, but just talking to him on Zoom or whatever, you realize, oh yeah, this guy was like the star of Texas football's defense, and they just like, you don't normally see that from a 5th round pick, like they picked like DeMarco Jackson around the same area. I just feel like this guy, like the same thing, like Jalen Ford and Spencer Rattler feel like 3rd round picks to me.
I agree. Look, I think Boyd might take like a year to kind of really settle in. Like the curve is so far for him. I mean,
well, that's what happens whenever you go to Northern Iowa. Like, and that has been the problem with Saints picks, is that we end up taking people from like Northern Iowa or wherever, and it takes them a year or 2 years just to figure out what's going on around them. Like that is like, think about it, guys. Like I went to a 1A high school in Mississippi. I can't even imagine if I would have went from that high school, like if I played college ball and I went from that high school to like Texas or something, even just the facilities, even just going from, concrete buildings with no walls and barely even any flooring and leaky ceilings and all that to like billion-dollar facilities, going from Biloxi, Mississippi to Austin, Texas, like that alone would be a huge difference, right? So times that by infinity. And that's what going from Northern Iowa to the New Orleans Saints is like. So it does take a year or 2 years just for these guys as human beings to get a grip on what's going on. And then they have to also play at a very high level, which is why I'm not saying never take those players, but when you take those players and expect them to play immediately, like Trevor Penning, you really, really see how steep the learning curve is.
I mean, I'm excited about his potential, but I think it's going to take him a little bit of time. So I would probably I think I would probably, on the excitement meter, day 3 picks, I think I would probably put Ford ahead of him.
Yeah. Let's go back to day 2. Like Mike alluded to earlier, they traded up to get Kool-Aid McKinstry. Yes. So where do you think Kool-Aid McKinstry fits in the secondary?
I think he fits where somebody's already standing. I mean, I think someone might fall out of that, honestly. I mean, they didn't trade up to take him in the second round to have him sit behind somebody else.
I mean, we'll see. Again, I've said it a million times, but cornerbacks scheme situation, like cornerbacks can play, they can get rotated in, rotated out, depending on matchups, depending on the scheme, depending on what they're trying to do. Kool-Aid, as far as I understand it, big, physical, could certainly play in a nickel role. Like, time will tell. I trust Dennis Allen to know what to do with him, but I love that. I love his versatility, and I have no doubt that he will. I have no doubt that he will be impactful and that he will play quite a bit this season.
He has the traits, I think, to play inside too. I mean, I think everybody's on notice. I think it's a wide open competition.
100%.
I think it's open to the possibility of trading Marshawn if they get the right offer. Now you don't really have to think about like what does this do to the season. It's just you're moving on. You're moving on to the future at that point, and it would be tough to see Marshawn go. But I think that the door is more open than it was on just considering the possibility.
It's win-win. It's win-win. If Marshawn stays, sweet. We have a absolutely loaded secondary. If we're in a situation where we move off Marshawn, I would hate to see him go. I think he's awesome, but you just all of a sudden it's next man up, right? And that is why that's why you draft talented players and you figure out what to do with them later. Like, we could have for sure, again, go back to the Malachi Corley thing. We could have for sure looked at that second round pick and said, we don't need a cornerback. We have Marshawn, we have a Debo, we have Lante Taylor. Don't worry about it. Just take Malachi Corley. But taking Kool-Aid, not only does it make the roster better, not only does it make us better in the future, not only does it make us deeper, but it also now opens up these avenues of like, if we have to trade Marshawn, now we can without, losing a step. Now we can without falling off. And that's just so valuable.
I still don't think they're going to get the offer they want, but if it comes and maybe it goes, into training camp, into the season, I mean, either one of them guys could get traded, honestly. Like you have the replacement now. You're probably moving on from one of them. You aren't paying everybody. You drafted Kool-Aid, so you don't have to pay somebody.
Yep.
Somebody's on their way out. It's just who and how soon do they want to do it?
Yeah, man, I wish I could get a better read on Marshawn. I really don't think this was a signal that the Saints have already decided they're pushing him out the door. I think that
I agree. I push back on that. I do not think this was a pick where it's like, we're taking this pick because Marshawn is getting pushed out the door. I think this was a pick where it's like, well, we're going to take this guy. Best case scenario, they're both on the team. But if Marshawn has to go, then at least we have a replacement. But I don't think it was like we're taking him so that we can move Marshawn.
Door is still open. I think a lot of it.
I trust Mickey Loomis when he says that he doesn't want to trade a contributor. And I really do believe that.
Depends on where Marshawn's head is at. And Dennis Allen was just so blunt talking about it. He's like, yeah, I haven't talked to Marshawn. And he's like, but that's not that's not new. I normally don't talk to Marshawn. I mean, I think he's just being open and blunt about, like, if Marshawn wants to be here, yeah, we want that great cornerback. Sure. But if he doesn't, we're making preparations for all possibilities. I think at some point it's probably incumbent on Marshawn to let them know, like, are you part of this team or not? And I think that will probably start around the time of rookie minicamp. But if Marshawn, Lattimore, and Paulson Adebo are here and they're not traded, those guys are probably starting on the outside. And I think that puts Alontae Taylor on notice. In the meantime, inside, I will give Nick his flowers here. I was trying to find the exact number of stats. I mean, we're looking up stats on Kool-Aid McKinstry, and he basically played like inside none. Like it was double-digit snaps in his career playing in the slot. It was almost exclusively outside. Nick watches the tape on his computer, sitting next to us in the draft room for about 20 minutes, and then he goes, I see a guy that can play inside. And then later when we talked to the coach, we really see a guy that can play inside here. Like he recognized, and that was the Saints' vision for him. Like they're going to start him outside and with the ability to move inside. But if he's trying to get his way on the field and Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo are there, it's almost a prediction to think he could beat out Alontae Taylor, or Alontae Taylor needs to show just rapid growth after he has the year head start playing in the slot.
It's good to have the competition. I mean,
I was just about to say that. It's good. That's a position where you want competition. That is a position where it's like, hey, we're going to throw 5 guys in there and see what happens. Like the best ones will come out of it. We're just going to say, let them duel it out. We're going to let them push each other, and we'll see when the season starts, like what the pecking order is.
So I seen a graphic today. I think Bappa put it out, and it was just kind of all the DBs that they've drafted over the years, and it's a hit list, man. Yeah. And it's first round, 5th round. I mean, it's just they hit on them so often. So
Dennis Allen. I mean, say what you want about Dennis Allen being an absolute garbage, dog water, nothing head coach, sure, but defensively, he's one of the best in the game. One of the best defensive coaches in the game. So it's not surprising that they do find diamonds in the rough later on in the draft defensively.
If they like somebody in the secondary and they take them and they're showing you that they cover them, like I'm all in on that guy. Same. And, I almost feel like the conversation around Kool-Aid, it was just kind of like he was considered too good for too long. It almost became one of them things because, like, for the longest time, he's a first rounder. He's the best cornerback in the SEC. It's all this stuff. And then it's just kind of like, how you just start picking people apart. And I think he just kind of got picked apart over time. I like him. I think they got great value with it.
100%.
I like to trade up even. I know we were talking about before coming in, like, don't make any of those trades. I don't know. It's just kind of getting him. It just kind of felt like a steal a little bit. So I like that they jumped on the opportunity. And I think just having him there kind of takes a lot of the stress and the pressure out of, like, the whole secondary picture because, again, like, if Marshawn goes, it doesn't mean your season's over. I think you still have a strong secondary without him. And it's going to be really interesting to see what they do.
I don't know if you could go wrong picking up one of Saban's last great products.
Fantastic draft from the Saints. It really was. Really fantastic. I'm glad, A+, might be a little bit strong, but I don't think you can go any lower than B+. So, ladies and gentlemen, go down in the comments below. Let me know, what do you think? You think the Saints grade was overhyped? Do you think the Saints draft grade was underhyped? Where do you think it should be? Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.